So today we're talking about expansive seed thoughts. And I was trying to think of where this topic came from because it came out of one of our lives. And all I remember is us talking about the fact that we forget sometimes what a blessing it is to be alive. We get so caught up in issues in the day-to-day grind or yesterday's traumas and dramas and anger and righteousness and all that, that we forget that what a blessing it is that we even woke up today. I remember reading, actually heard a Buddhist speak about this once, and then I read more about it. And they talked about how in many traditions they will do a death meditation when they wake up. And so they actually ponder having died, which sounds really morbid, but there's something about it. There's something about it that clicks us into gear that says, no, it's actually really quite a miracle that we're breathing, that we're here. You know, it's not assumed that we get to hang out on earth together. This is quite a blessing that we all woke up this morning and that there is actually prana flowing through us, animating this interesting assignment we've been given. And we have another day to play in it. That's amazing, right? That's an amazing thing. And yet, we have these thoughts that roll through our minds that make us that make us think that we're nothing, that we're just grinding out the days, no purpose, no reason to be here. Just one day after the next, it's always the same. I'm worthless. I can't, and yet these thoughts are there, and yet we're alive. Like these two things can't go together. So, and I have to tell you another story, which I'm not sure why I'm telling it to you. I don't even know how it works in the context of this talk, but so this morning, I woke up, my alarm was set, and I woke up ahead of it, and I was lying there, and it was like I was watching. It was like, here's me, then there was this space, and then above the space was like these clouds, but they weren't clouds, but there was just like this, imagine a layer of clouds. But in that were like a million thoughts. Like there had to be thoughts on 20 different topics. And they were all ready. Like it's like they were horses at the gate waiting to enter my consciousness. They were just like, oh yeah, she's waking up. Like let's get in there and bombard her with all of our thoughts. And I was lying there, and I had this weird space in between me and the wild horses of thoughts that wanted to come into my brain. And I'm lying there in my bed going, weird. And in my consciousness, I would step into the silence, and then I would step into the fray of the voices. Then I would step back into the silence. And I just kept doing this. Like it was very, and I don't even know why. It's very strange. So then my alarm was about to go off. So I got up and I had a glass of water, and the little voice in my head says, go back and play with that more. So I went back to bed, set my alarm for a half hour later, and I just lay there playing in this really weird space inside of my mind, my consciousness, my whatever. And I was just so aware of how much choice we have. Do we jump into this maelstrom of voices, or do we choose the silence? And that's really interesting to me today because we're talking about expansive seed thoughts. So imagine we do our Buddhist meditation on death. I don't recommend this to everybody, but imagine you do, and you imagine, okay, I've died. Today is like borrowed time. It's a brand new day. It's an open day. Anything's possible. What thought do I want to plant today? What tree do I want to grow? Where do I want to expand today? Because if we just jump into that fray, into that crazy space, we don't even, it's like all the old mantras that roll through our mind that make us limited, they just roll through our brain. Like think of all the, if you imagine it, and I think this is a really great exercise to do, is to take a piece of paper, because you know how I love taking a piece of paper with two sides on it. And on this side, you write down all the thoughts that roll through your mind all the time. Like, I'm not good enough. I'll never get ahead. There's never enough time. There's never enough money. I'll always be alone. No one likes me. Everyone's out to get me. Everyone's in control of my life. I have no choice. Whatever those thoughts are. Like, can you imagine? You're given an open day. Why would we plant those seeds? And it is our choice. Right? So it's really, really important to be able to say, what seeds do I want to plant today? So there are times in my life, like I love quotations, obviously, because I love quoting quotations. Like one of my favorite ones lately is Helen Keller. She said, a bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. There's so many great quotes. So oftentimes you'll find a book filled with meditations, and it might just be a quote or a thought, but those meditations are like seed thoughts to ponder through the day, that if you're going to grow anything today, why don't we grow it based on that? So there's times in my life that I love that kind of thing, and I'll take a quote like that and I'll put it on my fridge so that if I find myself unconsciously swirling with the raging horses in my mind, I'll suddenly see this quote and I'll think, right. And the horses go away. A bit of quiet enters my mind and this new thought can be born. Another favorite of mine is Lao Tzu, the Taoist. And he wrote, if you do not change direction, you will likely end up where you're heading. I love that one. That one I have repeated to myself hundreds of times because it's a goodie for me. So beyond what famous people have said, there are actually mantras that I personally use. There are seed thoughts that I personally plant that really help me. And that's what I really want to share with you. Because it's like there's, and again, so imagine you take your piece of paper and you do this yourself and you write down all the thoughts that enter your mind that are those limiting thoughts. And then on the flip side, you write all the opposite, like absolute opposite thoughts, because these are the expansive ones. These are the limiting ones. So I have a friend who, she practices access consciousness bars, and they're a very, very interesting tradition. So one of my great challenges has been, how can I ever have enough time to do everything that I'm doing, right? I love to teach. I'm writing 4 different books right now. I have sessions with people. I have friends and family, and, where is there ever going to be enough time? And whenever I would say that, she would always look at me and she'd say, there's always enough time. And the first few times she said it, you have that, this knee-jerk reaction that says, what are you talking about? Don't be stupid with me. I'm being serious. This is important. I've got X and if you see these things and see these things, and then by Friday I have to have this done. What do you know? So the argument comes back. But so anyway, this became a mantra of mine. And I probably repeat it daily. Whenever I have this huge pile of things to get done, I just repeat to myself, there's always enough time. And the wild thing is according to my brain and society and chronological time and what have you, this is not true. But there's another part of me that's much wiser that knows it is true. There is exactly enough time. There's more than enough time. I just don't understand the timeline. And besides that, the crazy thing is, when I repeat this to myself, I mean it, I literally have weeks where I have more hours that have to be clocked than there exist hours. And I still like sleeping and eating. But then I repeat this mantra over and over again, and time changes. Everything gets done. And I can't explain it, and I'm going to do another talk here about timelessness. But it's almost like when I relax, my experience of time changes. Maybe it affects my nervous system because I'm relaxed and I'm focused. But everything gets done, magically, always. So this mantra, there is always enough time. Even though the world and the arithmetic we were taught says it's not true, my experience is that it is true. So this mantra now lives. The mantra is just, there's always enough time. And this is a very expansive seed thought for me. In the morning, I'm a list person. My mind loves organization. So I will make a list of everything that needs to be done today, for the whole week. I'll sketch out my whole week on Mondays. And by Saturday, everything is complete. No matter how much I've put on the list, everything is always complete. And so it's amazing. The next seed thought I want to talk about is, in those moments when things just didn't go your way, for whatever reason, it's just, I don't know, you just feel like the door's all closed and you're just stuck. So the mantra that I repeat in my mind when I feel like that is, so what's right about this that I'm not understanding? This is probably the most common mantra I use inside of me. Without a doubt. What's right about this? Because it is amazing. It's an amazing thing when you look at something that's really awful or really hard or really difficult, and you just sort of think, okay, what am I missing here? And inevitably, answers come, like brand new answers. It was funny when I was writing down my notes for our talk, I kept having this vision of a fork in the road, right? Whenever anything happens, it's like we come to this fork in the road We can go down. So I was looking at my hand. I was looking at this fork and I was thinking, so we can go down the old road of limited thought, whatever it is. Like, let's say something happens. Let's say you lose your job or you hurt your leg or something happens and you can no longer work. You can't do what you know. The mantra this way says, this is always what happens to me. I'm never going to work again. Now what? How are we ever going to have enough money, right? That's this fork, that old, well-traveled road. But then there's this other one, which is this other seed thought road, which might be something like, so what's right about this? And then the secondary thought to that is, what else is possible? And I was laughing, and this is really corny, okay? But you have this fork in the road, so we can go down this road that's super limited, or we can go down the what else is possible road, and it does this. Right? Like suddenly all the options open. Let's say you wreck your leg for some reason and you can't work how you once worked. So you sit there in your house and you're like, I'm never going to be able to work again. I hate not being able to work. I hate this, whatever, right? Wherever we go in those dark spaces. But then when you ask yourself, so what else is possible? What's right about this? Well, those are two different questions, but let's move on to what else is possible. Because that's the second question. And then you think, well, maybe I could work online. Or maybe I could help in a senior center and read to people. Or maybe I could do this, or maybe I could do that. Like, there's a million options on this line that maybe we would never have considered if we'd continued on this same path. Right? This idea that as a human, there's only one option. And if it's not that option, it's nothing else. It's like that binary perception, that black and white, on or off. It's either yes or no. I either work the way I've always worked, or I don't work at all. It's like, no, it isn't black and white. The world is a rainbow, and it's a rainbow of colors beyond our visible spectrum. There's a million options. And so it's so interesting when we can let go of these old ideas of what we think or what's comfortable or what's whatever. And again, this is where we come back to the whole Buddhist death meditation. It's like, what are we so bloody attached to? Like, who cares? Who cares whether we do that job or live in this town or that? Who cares? Like, we're alive. We'll find the adventure no matter where we are. Like, we forget how amazing it is to be alive. Why would we only choose this? Why is this the only option when this is possible? Like, so those are huge for me. What's right about this? Like, I use that all the time. Like, all the time. Another seed thought that I use a lot is, especially when things are hard, when things are difficult. I remember a friend of mine who's a great energy healer. She said once, whatever you do when things get hard, don't contract. Expand. Become bigger when things get hard. And that's interesting to me because, when things get hard or even you feel badly, like sometimes something will happen and I'll feel badly that I shouldn't have done it that way, or I could have done it better, or somebody said something and it kind of hurt my feelings, so you contract, right? You kind of, whether I physically do this or not, I might physically do that lying in bed or something, but emotionally and energetically I contract. So my friends voice rings in my ears saying, expand instead, become bigger. And again, I can't explain what happens. But something changes. It's like all of a sudden I become big enough to allow that also. To allow that reality as well. And then every single thing that comes across our path that's difficult expands us. Imagine. Everything. Like we just become bigger and bigger and more interesting. And our perspective gets broader and clearer. That's a huge guiding principle for me. But again, these are the things that come to me when I'm down. Like these are the seed thoughts that help me. I don't often wake up in the morning and think these. These are the things that get me off the pavement, Another seed thought for me is the Maharishi or somebody said, there is no other. Because one of our great challenges is that, well, what will those people think? Or what if that person doesn't like me? Or what if, all concerned with other people? Or can you believe that person's doing that? Or can you believe they're doing this? Or can you believe, whether it's societal or family or political or whatever, right? Because personally, I've been a real people pleaser in my life. And when I get angry, I can become very self-righteous. Whether it's because I came from a line of preachers and teachers, holy mackerel, can I stand on a soapbox if I want to? And if I get there, I can get drunk on that righteousness. Like I can go too far. That's where my daughter would kind of stare at me and say, okay, Mom, slow down a little. And I'd be like, right, okay. I'll back up my self-righteous train a little. And then the medicine for me, when I'm really angry at the world or I don't really get mad at people very much. I can get frustrated with people, but I can get pretty angry with the world in general some days. And then the medicine for me, which is not easy medicine to swallow, is that there is no other. And in the moment, I never understand those words, but they repeat. They just always come in. But it's almost like that one, that is a seed that has to get planted. And then over time, it starts to make sense. That seed grows and grows and grows. And then I start having realizations about myself that I never would have had if that other person hadn't done that, or if that other person hadn't said that. I would never have come to that realization. And then I realized what a blessing that other person was, right? And that's when I realized that there is no other. I mean, they exist, but for my soul's journey, they really are there. If I'm patient enough, I will learn something here. I was just reading somewhere yesterday or the day before. It was a story of a Buddhist in a boat. It's always a Buddhist in a boat. So he was in a boat and he was meditating. And he's all blissed out. He's all happy. And all of a sudden, another boat banged into his boat. And he startled. And as he went to open his eyes, he was about to get mad at the person in the other boat that disturbed his bliss. And then he opened his eyes and looked, and the boat was empty. It was just floating through the lake. And in that moment, he reached full realization, because he realized that there is no other. They're all just empty boats here for our personal realization. And my ego struggles with this one a lot, but it's so powerful, and it takes the fire out of my righteousness and makes me sober again. Sober and sane. Another one I want to mention, because oftentimes we can really feel like there's no point to us personally. There's sort of this feeling like, I don't matter, I'm not important. We were really taught in school that there are the athletes and they do sports, and there are the artists and they make art, and there are the smart kids and they become doctors, and there are the, you know what I mean? Like, we have this thing, this weird, I don't know, expert thing that if you're not the best, you're nothing. You're a spectator, right? You're either the one performing or the one watching. And this, I believe, has left a huge percentage of the population really feeling like we don't contribute anything to society. Because, like, who are we? I'm just a commoner. I'm just a nobody. I'm just a whatever. I'm not interesting, And this I think is the foundation of a lot of our depression, a lot of our struggles, or a lot of the reasons we don't speak up in relationships, the reason we don't speak up in family, the reason we're afraid to show who we really are, so we hide behind personas and things that we think we want other people to like, that kind of thing. For me personally, I've always seen the world quite differently than others, and I think I've hidden a lot of that in a lot of my life. I'm much better at being out in the world today than I ever have been. And so the mantra that gets me there, that allows me to share me with the world, is the idea that each one of us was created with purpose. That I was born with a unique perspective, and that perspective is important. That somehow the color I add to the picture matters. And we don't have to be the master painter. Like, we don't have to get our egos involved in that. But my little piece, whatever that is, matters. And that gives me a lot of strength. That even if people don't like it, and if that person thinks it's dumb, or that person thinks it's crazy, or that person just whatever, that's okay. Like, it has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with the fact that my color is different than their color. And that's something that I do repeat to myself a lot, that your perspective matters. You're allowed to share. You're allowed to piss people off. You're allowed to just be you. And that's a really big deal, because magnetism's an amazing thing, because the closer we are to ourselves, whatever that is, like attracts like. You find people, like, it's an amazing thing, and it's so genuine and so easy and so lovely. And I know this now. Like, that's the one thing about these expansive seed thoughts, right? That they just are true. And when you repeat them over and over again, in the dark times, not in the happy times, But in the dark times, like when you're hurting, when it's hard, when you wake up in the morning and you're just, sometimes that happens. You just wake up and you're just like, who's in my head? Those are when you use these and you really sit with them and you kind of like, and maybe that's why it was coming to me about this weird morning I had in bed, that there is a space between the crazy thoughts of yesterday and the trappings and society and all that. There is a space that we can sit in and plant a different seed. It really is our choice. Like, it's so funny how we feel like we have no choice, that we have to just dive into the angry thoughts. We have to dive into the sad thoughts. We have to dive into the thoughts of everything we've lost or that don't exist. And if we don't maintain that anger, then my experiences aren't just like all these things, like all these. It's like, yeah, but is that really how we want to spend today? The last one I want to share is, I remember I first read this. I believe it was a quote by Marianne Williamson. And I'm not gonna say the quote properly, but she basically talked about two aspects of life intersecting, like time and space, or time and potential, or the soul, or something. And these two things intersected. And in that point of intersection was infinity. And what I took away from that, and what I repeat to myself often, is that infinity only exists in this moment, right now. This is the only place of infinite potential, is this moment, not 5 minutes from now, not when I get that new job, not when I get that great partner, not when my kids move out. The only place of infinite potential is right now. And that really feeds me. It feeds me in the idea that there's always enough time for everything. Because in this moment, if I can keep focused in this moment, there is infinity in this moment. The discipline is to not let my head go ahead of this infinite moment. And as long as I stay here, anything's possible. And so that actually reminds me of my favorite Buddhist mantra. Present moment, only moment. Again, it sounds really simple, but it's not easy medicine to swallow, because we're very sure that thing that I'm doing in an hour is really important to me right now. Like, we're sure of that. It's separate somehow than this moment. And it's not. Like, we're actually always, I know it all sounds so corny, we don't even have words, but that is another of my perpetual mantras. If I ever find myself running ahead of myself or feeling like I'll, and even anything, not just in busyness of life, but even fears of the future, fears of what's coming and fears of what may happen or what won't happen. Present moment, only moment changes everything, right? Because there is no future, just like there is no other. It's just here, just now. That's it. Like, this is the infinite moment right now. And then from that space, we get to go out and play in the world. We get to go and play with the people and the possibilities and the sunshine and, So thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you soon.